Olumide, Nia's elder brother, was everything the village respected. He was a skilled diviner, trusted to interpret the signs from the Tree of Omoluabi. His faith in the tree was unshakable, and his voice carried weight when he spoke. He believed that the tree's guidance was the key to their survival. Olumide was certain Ekojoba was a village that lived by its traditions, where the villagers saw their lives intertwined with nature. They believed the spirits of their ancestors lived within the earth, in the rivers, in the trees, and most importantly, in the Tree of Omoluabi. This tree was the heart of the village, its leaves and fruit serving as guides for the people's lives. The villagers came to it for answers, asking for blessings, for guidance, and for protection. The tree's power had been trusted for generations. Nia walked along the village's edge, her thoughts far from the customs that surrounded her. While others found peace in the wisdom of the tree, Nia felt only confusion. She could not shake the feeling that there was something more to life than the answers the tree provided. She had begun to question the very foundation of the village's beliefs. The suffering the villagers endured, the poor harvests, the sickness, the unanswered prayers, all pointed to something deeper. She could no longer accept that the tree held all the answers, as everyone believed. Her heart longed for something beyond tradition, something that made sense, something that would bring true change. Had the recent troubles, the failed crops, the illness, came from the villagers' failure to respect the ancient ways? Whenever the villagers sought answers, it was Olumide they turned to. He stood as a figure of authority, one who upheld the wisdom of their ancestors and the power of the tree. His belief was unwavering, and he defended it with all his strength. Elder Ijeoma was the village's spiritual leader, the one who held the deepest knowledge of their customs. She had seen many generations pass, all following the same rituals. She knew the weight of the past and the importance of the tree. To her, the tree was more than just a source of answers. It was a symbol of their bond with the ancestors. When Nia began questioning the tree's power, Elder Ijeoma warned her. "The tree is the spirit of our ancestors," she said softly. "To doubt it is to dishonor them." Her voice was firm, yet filled with wisdom. She understood that the young generation might seek something new, but she believed in the old ways. She feared what might happen if the villagers lost faith in the tree. The Tree of Omoluabi stood as a sacred symbol in the center of Ekojoba. Its power was believed to guide the people in their darkest moments. The villagers would kneel before it, seeking answers to their deepest questions. Each season they came to the tree with their worries and hopes. If a fruit fell from the tree, it was a sign that the future was clear. If it did not, they knew. They must wait. The tree's power was unquestioned until now. As the seasons grew harsher and the land became more barren, Nia began to wonder if the tree's wisdom was enough. As the seasons passed, the village of Ekojoba grew restless. The tree no longer produced the fruits it once did. The villagers waited, hoping for guidance, but the tree was silent. Their crops failed again. Sickness spread, and despite their prayers and offerings, the tree did not give them the answers they so desperately needed. Nia, troubled by the village's suffering, began to question the tree's power openly. Her doubts were met with resistance, but she could see the same uncertainty in the eyes of others. Slowly, whispers spread through the village, questioning whether the tree could still guide them. It was as though the very foundation of their beliefs was beginning to crumble. Determined to find the truth, Nia ventured beyond the village. She sought out other spiritual sources, speaking with wise women and elders who did not rely on the tree. They spoke of the spirits that roamed the earth and the wisdom hidden in the winds and the waters. Nia's journey was one of self-discovery, a search for answers that could not be found in the old ways alone. She began to understand that the village had grown too reliant on the tree. blind to the other ways of connecting with the spirits. Her quest for truth took her further from the village, through forests and across rivers. She knew the path she walked was one of both danger and possibility. Upon her return, Nia could no longer hold her tongue. She went to her brother Olumide and confronted him in front of the villagers. Her voice was filled with emotion. "Olumide," she said, "you cannot keep leading the village into darkness. The tree has not saved us. The crops wither and the people suffer. We must look for answers beyond it." Olumide's face flushed with anger. "You have no right to question the tree, Nia," he shouted. "It has always guided us. It is disrespectful to challenge it, to challenge our ancestors." The villagers gathered around, their eyes darting between the siblings. Some whispered in agreement with Nia, others stood firm with Olumide. The tension was palpable. "You think you know better than the ancestors?" Olumide snapped, his voice growing louder. "You think your way will save the village? You are bringing shame upon us." Nia stood firm, her heart pounding. "No, Olumide, it is you who are holding us back. The ancestors gave us wisdom to learn and grow. The tree cannot tell us everything." The argument between them grew heated, their voices echoing across the village. It was no longer just a family conflict. It was a battle for the future of Ekojoba, a struggle between tradition and change. Nia stood at the edge of the field, her heart heavy. The crops, once lush and green, had shriveled to brown stalks. The soil, dry as dust, cracked under her feet. Villagers came daily to pray under the Tree of Omoluabi, seeking guidance. But it was as if the tree no longer listened. It had failed them. Her mother, Adama, came from the house, wiping her brow. "Nia, the harvest is lost again," she said quietly. "What will we do now? The tree has spoken. We must trust in it." Nia's eyes flashed with frustration. "The tree has spoken nothing. It promised us bounty, but we have nothing but sickness and death," she replied sharply. The answers she found were troubling. They spoke of divinations that didn't rely on trees, of connecting with the earth in other ways, and of knowledge lost to time. Each new discovery stirred her heart, but also filled her with fear. Was she betraying her village? Was she abandoning her people's past? When Nia returned to Ekojoba, her brother Olumide was waiting for her. His face was dark with anger. "You have gone too far," he said, his voice trembling with rage. "You have gone to other villages, sought out forbidden knowledge. What have you done, Nia? You are betraying the very spirit of our ancestors." Nia stood tall. "I am not betraying anyone, Olumide. The tree has failed us. I'm seeking a new way. One that can truly help us." Olumide's fists clenched. "You bring shame upon this village, sister. If you continue down this path, you will bring destruction. The spirits will punish us." "I will not be silenced, Olumide. I will find a way to save us. You cannot control me with fear." The tension between them grew. The village was watching, their faith in the old ways hanging in the balance. Olumide, once the respected leader of the village, now found his authority slipping. The next few weeks saw the village split in two. On one side stood Nia, with her friends and those who began to question the power of the tree. They spoke of new ways, ways that could bring prosperity without relying on the old beliefs. On the other side stood Olumide, with the elders and the traditionalists. They spoke of respect for the ancestors, of the danger in straying from the old path. Elder Ijeoma, who had once been Nia's guide, tried to calm the village. "We must not divide," she said. "The tree has guided us for generations. The ancestors are with us. We must trust their wisdom." But her words fell on deaf ears. The village was torn, the people shouting at each other in the open square. The once united village of Ekojoba was now a battleground for two clashing beliefs. One morning, the villagers gathered as usual under the Tree of Omoluabi. But this time, The tree was different. The leaves, which once fluttered in the wind like whispers from the ancestors, now hung limp and still. The fruit, which had always ripened with ease, began to rot on the branches. "Something is wrong," murmured Elder Ijeoma. She looked at the tree with a deep sense of dread. The tree, it is no longer speaking. The villagers stood in shock. Fear gripped their hearts. "The tree is dying," someone whispered. A hushed silence fell over them, broken only by the sound of the wind. The tree's decline mirrored the growing fear and uncertainty within the village. The once unshakable faith in the tree now faltered. That night, as the village lay in despair, Nia made her decision. She could no longer wait for answers from the tree. It had failed, and so had the old ways. She gathered her friends, Kemi, Fola, and others, and prepared for the journey into the forbidden jungle. "We will find the truth no matter the cost," Nia said. The jungle was feared by the villagers. They spoke of spirits that lurked there, of unseen forces that punished those who entered. But Nia was determined. The fate of Ekojoba rested on her shoulders. The journey was difficult, the jungle thick with vines and shadows. Strange noises echoed through the trees. But Nia pressed on, her heart filled with hope that they would find something that would save the village. Back in Ekojoba, Olumide grew desperate. The tree, his last link to the past, was failing. He could not bear the thought of losing control, of the village turning against the old ways. His fear drove him to act harshly. He ordered that no one should approach the tree. "It is sacred," he shouted. "You will not desecrate it with your doubts." Olumide's orders became more extreme. He punished anyone who dared speak against the tree, silencing dissent with threats and fear. The village, once peaceful, was now a place where freedom of thought was forbidden. In the heart of the jungle, Nia and her group stumbled upon a hidden clearing. At the center stood an ancient stone tablet covered in moss. The markings on it were worn, but Nia could still read the words. "This is it," she whispered. The prophecy on the tablet revealed the truth. The Tree of Omoluabi was not just a tool for divination. It was a symbol of the balance between the physical and spiritual worlds, meant to be cared for, not worshipped blindly. The village had abused its power for generations. The suffering was not caused by the tree's loss of power. It was caused by the people's neglect of their true duties to the land and the spirits. Nia's heart raced. She understood now. The village's crisis could be solved, but only if they returned to the true path, the path of respect and balance, not blind. Obedience. She turned to her friends. "We must return. We have the truth now. We must teach the village." With renewed determination, Nia and her group made their way back to Ekojoba, ready to confront the village's future. Nia returned to Ekojoba with the weight of knowledge heavy on her shoulders. The village was a storm of whispers and rumors. Some feared a curse, others spoke of disaster coming. She walked towards the Tree of Omoluabi, its silent branches swaying with no life, no answer. It stood as it always had, yet different. The tree was no longer a source of hope. It was a shadow. Nia's resolve was firm. She would face Olumide. The time had come. The village would no longer suffer in silence. She had the truth, and now she would show it. The villagers gathered, their faces filled with anticipation. Today, they would see what would become of their way of life. Would it survive, or would it be destroyed? Nia stood before the crowd, her eyes fixed on the silent tree. She called out, her voice strong and clear. "Olumide," she cried, "the time for silence has passed. I will no longer let us perish under false belief." Olumide stepped forward, his face hard like stone. "You have returned, but the questions you ask dishonor our ancestors," he growled. The tree has spoken to us for generations. You question it, and in doing so, you spit on the bones of our forefathers. Nia's heart pounded, but she didn't step back. It is you who dishonors them, Olumide. You bow to the tree like a slave to a master. The tree no longer speaks, but you continue to follow it, blind to the suffering around us. The villagers watched, tense, waiting. Nia's words stung like thorns in the air. You do not understand, sister, Olumide shouted. The tree holds the wisdom of the gods. Without it, we are lost. But it has failed us, Nia's voice rang out. The crops are dying, the sickness spreads, and the tree offers no answers. It is time for us to find our own way. Your stubbornness will lead us to ruin. The argument between them grew louder. Each word they threw was a stone at the other's heart. Old wounds reopened and the crowd shifted uneasily. They were torn. Half believed Nia's call for change and half held tight to Olumide's faith in the old ways. The tension in the air was thick, like the calm before a storm. Then, in a flash of fury, Olumide made his move. His hands rose, and with a shout of rage, he struck the Tree of Omoluabi. The sound of the blow echoed through the village like thunder. At that moment, the heavens opened. A violent storm erupted, winds howled, and lightning cracked the sky. The ground shook beneath their feet. The tree, as if alive, seemed to shudder and groan. Its branches swayed as if fighting against the strike, the storm's fury matching Olumide's anger. Nia stepped back, eyes wide. What have you done, Olumide? The storm. It's angry. But Olumide didn't listen. He stood tall, staring at the tree as the storm raged around him. The tree is nothing. It's weak. And so are the old ways, he shouted over the wind. But then from the heart of the tree came a sound, deep, ancient and powerful. The villagers fell to their knees. The storm seemed to pause. In its place, a blinding light erupted from the tree, flooding the village with its brightness. A voice both strong and gentle filled the air. The past and the future are bound together, it said. Without understanding both, the village shall falter. The villagers trembled. They did not dare move. The spirit of Omoluabi had awakened. You strike at the root, but you do not understand what you destroy. The spirit continued. Tradition alone will not save you. Change alone will bring nothing but chaos. The key lies in balance. The wind ceased and the light faded. The villagers were left in stunned silence. Olumide stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. What had he done? As the storm subsided, Olumide fell to his knees. The weight of the spirit's words hit him like a mighty wave. His breath came, in shallow gasps, and for the first time, he saw the error of his ways. I did not understand, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I thought we could only follow the old ways, but I see now. We cannot ignore what has changed. Tears welled in his eyes as he bowed his head before the spirit. Forgive me. I thought I was protecting the village, but I have only brought harm. I am sorry. Nia watched her brother, her heart torn. She had wanted him to see, but this was more than she had ever expected. Then Nia too was struck by the truth. She realized that in her quest to change everything, she had dismissed the wisdom of the past. She had sought answers outside her people's traditions, but now she saw there was value in what had come before. She stepped forward, her voice soft but steady. I too have wronged you, Olumide. I sought to change everything, but I forgot that the past is not just a shadow to cast off. It is a foundation. Without it, we have no roots. Olumide looked up at her, and for the first time in many moons, they saw each other clearly, truly. Their paths had been different, but they were still one. Together, Olumide said quietly, We must bring the village back to its feet. Nia nodded. Together, the two siblings stood before the Tree of Omoluabi. They raised their hands in unity, a plea for guidance. Spirit of Omoluabi, we seek your wisdom, they spoke as one. Teach us the balance of change and tradition. Help us heal our people, and may we walk together toward a brighter future. The tree seemed to respond. Its branches shook gently, and for the first time in many days, new leaves began to bud. A sign of hope, a sign of life. The storm had passed. The village, divided and broken, was beginning to heal, and Nia and Olumide, once divided, now stood as one. The spirit's voice echoed softly, "When unity and understanding come together, the land will flourish. The future is built on the wisdom of the past, and together they will rise." The storm passed. The wind slowed, and the sky cleared, leaving behind a silence that was both peaceful and strange. The villagers slowly emerged from their homes, their eyes wide, unsure of what had happened. The ground was wet, and the air still carried the scent of rain. The Tree of Omoluabi, which had once stood still and lifeless, was now alive again. Its branches swayed, and fresh green leaves began to sprout. The air was thick with wonder as the first fruits appeared on its branches. The villagers gathered, whispering in awe. Some knelt in thanks, others stood in silence, unsure of what this rebirth meant. Nia and Olumide stood together, their eyes on the tree. They could feel its power, and yet it was not just the tree that had changed. The entire village was different. The storm had passed, but the air was filled with a new energy. The spirit's judgment had passed. It was as if the village had been given a second chance. But what would they do with it? As the villagers watched, the air shimmered. A deep, ethereal voice echoed from the tree. It was the voice of the spirit. The tree has returned. But the path ahead is not certain, the spirit said. The balance between the old ways and the new must be kept. If you grow too rigid in your traditions or too reckless in your changes, you will lose your way again. The villagers stood still, listening. You must honor both the past and the present, the spirit continued. Neither is more important than the other. The future of your village depends on this balance. The spirit paused, its presence powerful, then spoke one final word. Understand that growth is a slow process. Nurture both the tree and your people. Let neither be taken for granted. With those words, the light faded and the spirit vanished. The villagers were left to wonder, how would they find this balance? Nia looked at her brother, and he at her. They knew what they had to do. The spirit's message was clear. They had both learned something on this journey. That change and tradition could not fight each other. They must walk together. Nia took a deep breath and spoke. We have both been wrong, Olumide. I wanted to change everything, and you wanted to hold onto the old ways, but we were missing something. We must meet in the middle. Olumide nodded slowly, his face calm but serious. I see now, Nia. The past cannot be thrown away, and the future cannot be ignored. We must walk the path of balance, together. The two siblings turned to face the villagers who had gathered around them. Nia raised her hand, and the crowd grew silent. We must lead this village as one, she said, her voice steady. We will honor the old ways but also welcome the new. Together, we will find a way to heal the land and restore the balance. Olumide stepped forward. Today we will begin with a ceremony. We will honor our ancestors, the land, and the spirits of nature. We must unite in this moment, for this is the path to healing. And so, the villagers gathered around the tree. Together they danced, sang, and made offerings. They poured water onto the soil, placed fruits at the base of the tree, and prayed. The ceremony brought the village together like never before. The old and the young, the wise and the bold, all stood as one. The land, once broken, seemed to respond. The crops began to show signs of life. The trees grew tall and the rivers ran clear. The next day, Nia and Olumide called together the village's elders and the younger ones. The village needed a new way to govern itself, a way that honored both the wisdom of the past and the ideas of the future. "We need a council," Nia said, "a place where the elders can share their wisdom and the youth can share their dreams. Together, we will make the decisions that will guide Ekojoba forward." Olumide nodded. "We cannot go forward without listening to everyone. Every voice matters. It is only through unity that we will succeed." And so, the new council was formed. The elders sat beside the young, and decisions were made together. The village became stronger as they learned to blend the old with the new, to find harmony between tradition and progress. Months passed, and the village of Ekojoba began to flourish once more. The Tree of Omoluabi, once a symbol of fear and confusion, was now a sign of strength and unity. Its branches reached high, and the fruits it bore were plentiful. The land was full of life once more. Nia and Olumide led the village, but they did not stand alone. They worked together with the council, combining the wisdom of the elders with the energy of the youth. The people of Ekojoba, once divided, were now united. The village had found a way to move forward by honoring its past while embracing the possibilities of the future. As the years passed, the villagers reflected on their journey. They had learned a powerful lesson, that true wisdom lies in balance. Too much of the past can hold you back. Too much of the future can lead to destruction. But when you respect both, you grow and thrive. The Tree of Omoluabi stood tall in the center of the village, a living symbol of the delicate balance between the past and the future. It reminded them every day that the path to prosperity is not found in extremes, but in harmony. The villagers of Ekojoba learned that growth is not about rejecting one for the other. It is about bringing both together and walking the path with respect, humility, and wisdom. And so, Ekojoba thrived, with both the old ways and the new, side by side. The village had found its balance, and it was stronger for it. The moral was clear. True strength comes from knowing that the past and the future must walk together. And only when we honor both can we move forward in harmony and find true peace and prosperity.